Hi there. Uh, Gwen Raimondi again, and today I'm going to share with you the second part of this five-part video series that I'm creating to introduce the concepts that we'll be exploring in my next 6-month circle, Becoming Unleashed. And today I'm going to talk about release and what that process is like. In my last video, I talked about individuation and what that is. Self-actualization, self-awareness, differentiation, uh, all those are similar concepts. So today I am talking about the process of release itself and letting go of the stories of that we've all been fed our entire lives through family, through culture, through community, through media, through our DNA, from our genetics, from our family and our family history, all of it, right? um, those stories of how we're too much, how we're not enough, how we should be ashamed of who we are, how we should be ashamed for even existing, and how those stories. I'm going to close this window. Sorry, it's getting a little noisy out there. And how those stories affect us, and what the process of letting go of those stories looks like. So when I talk about release, I am talking about that basically, not just release, but the unearthing, the digging up, the connecting to, the exploring and analyzing and unraveling of, and then the intentional and mindful choice to start to let those stories go, to set them down, and to start to do different, because now we understand where we've brought them into the light, and we understand where they came from and how they're impacting us. So release is not just, oh, I'm just going to let it go. There is a whole lot that goes on in quote releasing. So these stories that we all grow up with about how we're too much, how we're not enough, how we take up too much space, how we're not good enough, how we should be ashamed of who we are, how we shouldn't want, how there's a lot of shoulds that go with these stories, right? How we should be quieter, how we need to, I don't know, look a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way, right? All of that is conditioning, right? And all of those are messages that we all receive from multifacets throughout our lives. And those stories get into us, right? We don't choose to let them in, but they get in. And part of the reasons why they get in is because we are bombarded with them from such an early age that we actually don't have the developed brain and the developed mind to be able to say no to them. So it's not until we're older and we have this lovely developed brain and the capacity to start to really look at and analyze and unravel and discern whether or not these stories are applicable to us truly. And so we start to look at it. We start to pull it up. We start to ask, okay, when was the first time that I was told I wasn't good enough, and what was I not good enough at, and how have I internalized that message, and in what other ways does that show up? Right? What other aspects, not just the story of you're not a good enough artist, right? But then how does that show up in every other aspect of my life? How does it then prevent me from being creative in every other aspect of my life? Right. And so it's a lot of work. It is not something that is done in a week. It is not something that is done in 3 months or 6 months. This is a lifetime process. right? Of unraveling the layers, unearthing the layers, of getting to a point where we think we've got it, we think we're good, we think we've let go of that stuff, and then bam, life happens, and well, we're triggered again, and we're feeling in that really small place, right? Of not being good enough or being too much, or the shame that's involved in all of that. And it's not uh, hmm, it's not an it's typically not an easy process. It's typically not a fun process, though I think there are fun aspects to it, right? I think it's exciting to get to know ourselves better. Um, and it can be this is what Jung would call the shadow work, right? This is doing that deep work of unearthing and seeing how those stories that do live in our unconscious, that do live in our bodies, that do live within us, our spirits, our souls, right, that live there, how they do impact us, right? And bringing what, again, Jung would call the unconscious into consciousness and becoming aware. And that is perhaps where the real release is that becoming aware. Now I know what this story is. Now I know where this came from. Now I know its root in my life, right? And maybe I can explore the root from the person, the other person's life, the person who gave it to me, right? Like we all have the messages we get from our mothers, for example, from our fathers, from our grandmothers, from our grandfathers, from our aunties, right? And in this process of release, we can start to look at why that was their truth and why that was their story and why they passed that on to us. And that's part of our letting go, is developing that empathy and understanding of they were screwed by the system too, right? They were screwed by our culture too. And so it's all lifelong, right? It's lifelong work. We go through the layers, through the layers, through the layers. And in this next circle that I'm offering, that is where we begin, is in that unearthing and that unraveling and that becoming aware of the stories piece, and the idea of I'm intentionally choosing to set this down right now. I'm going to let this one be set down. And to note, just because we then intentionally and consciously decide I'm setting this down, does not mean it is disappeared from our lives or our being or anything. It means that now we are aware of it, and when it crops up, we can take a step back and breathe and go, "Oh, I know what this story is, and I don't want to keep doing that way. I want to now do this way. I want to do a different way. I want to do the way that I am going to consciously choose to do and be, instead of being in that unconscious place of just reacting, and typically really high emotion reacting to things, right? What some would call being triggered. What in the trauma world, where I live a lot, is being triggered, having our nervous systems completely out of whack, right? Part of the process that we will be going through in the circle is that reconnecting and learning to soothe and calm our nervous system so that we can be in a place, in that conscious place, in that frontal lobe place, as opposed to back here in the reactionary amygdala, right? Where we can be up here in logic and empathy, and we can intentionally move forward. We can intentionally feel what is happening and acknowledge what it is and not stuff it and not ignore it, right? But feel it and allow ourselves to process through that feeling, right? And then begin to do different instead of only reacting and being in that heightened state. So that is release. It's a lot, right? It is a lot, a lot, a lot. And it is where we will spend about a third of our time together in the Becoming Unleashed Circle, which begins September 22nd, runs for 6 months, and has an in-person 3-day retreat component to it that I strongly encourage you to join us and be a part of, because you're paying for it. So you may as well join us. If you have any questions about anything that I just spoke about or about the circle itself, please feel free to email me at gwen@gwenraymundy.com, or connect with me through my website. I have a contact form in my individual sessions space. And on the circle page itself, actually, when you request the application, it connects us, and so I can bug you through there too. So I hope that you have an amazing day. And in the next video, I'll be talking about what I call the goo, or what is the revolution of change, what is the metamorphosis, what is shifting us from the place of where we were in this unconscious state of being and into consciousness, but we're not in either space really yet. We're in that gooey place of in between and shifting and transforming. Right? So I'll talk about that next. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.